Many modern traditions treat fasting as a form of spiritual currency, a physical deposit made to purchase a miracle or compel God to act. Under this logic, 3 days of hunger should yield an answer, and 7 days should force a breakthrough. But this formulaic approach collapses in the face of Isaiah 58. The text describes the people of Israel starving themselves and humbling their bodies, yet they are met with total silence. They ask God why he takes no notice of their sacrifice. God's response targets the motive behind the hunger. He explains that on the days they fast, they are still pursuing their own interests, exploiting workers, and engaging in conflict. The physical hunger is present, but it is paired with a carnal, self-serving heart. Because God explicitly rejects this kind of bargaining, the transactional model fails as a biblical framework. This rejection forces us back to the text to identify the actual internal mechanism described by the prophets. The Hebrew word for fasting, tsum, points toward a specific physical act, closing the mouth. Beyond simply stopping the intake of food, it describes a state of voluntary silence, a discipline that prioritizes the heart's posture over the stomach's emptiness. In the New Testament, Jesus uses the Greek word nasteia when instructing his followers to fast in secret, en to the crypto. This refers to a hidden, underground place where the practice remains strictly between the individual and God. Secrecy is a technical requirement of the process. If a fast is performed for public recognition, it feeds the ego, replacing a physical appetite with a spiritual one and effectively neutralizing the practice. The Apostle Paul identifies the reason for this discipline: the constant internal conflict between the sarx and the pneuma. The sarx is the fallen human nature, a system of impulses and desires that generates constant noise, drowning out the steady frequency of the spirit. God designed fasting as the specific tool to turn down the volume of the sarx. By deliberately denying the most basic impulse of the body, the internal voice that demands constant satisfaction is paused. Fasting functions as an internal silencer. It mutes the noise of the self, so the spirit can finally register a signal that was already being broadcast. The first historical evidence for this mechanism appears at the giving of the law on Mount Sinai. Moses engaged in 2 separate 40-day fasts. The first prepared him to receive divine revelation, and the second allowed him to intercede for a rebellious people. In both cases, the total silence of his flesh created the spiritual capacity required for his specific task. Centuries later, the prophet Elijah collapsed in a cave, overwhelmed by the adrenaline and terror of his own flesh. Having reached a state of total exhaustion, he asked God to take his life. In this broken state, God did not demand a fast. Instead, an angel appeared and physically fed Elijah twice, restoring his body before addressing his spirit. Only after his physical strength returned and his emotional panic subsided could Elijah travel to the mountain. In that stillness, he finally heard the voice of God, not in the wind or the fire, but in a whisper. Biblical fasting is a voluntary surrender from a position of strength. Forcing a fast during an emotional or physical collapse is merely an act of self-punishment that prevents the very clarity it seeks to produce. During the displacement and peril of the Persian exile, the focus of fasting shifted from revelation to spiritual positioning. Daniel practiced a 21-day partial fast, progressively stripping away comforts, pleasures, and choice foods. He was systematically silencing the demands of his flesh.
When an angel finally appeared, he revealed that God had dispatched the answer on the very first day Daniel began his fast. The 3-week fast was not used to persuade God to move. It was the discipline required to sustain Daniel in the spiritual posture needed to receive what had already been sent. Queen Esther followed a similar pattern, calling for a community-wide 3-day fast before facing the king. The absence of food and water suppressed her survival instinct, allowing her to approach a death sentence with her spirit fully aligned with God's purpose. In these accounts, fasting holds the believer in a state of spiritual alignment, while God orchestrates victories in dimensions the human eye cannot see. Modern neuroscience confirms the physical shifts the ancient prophets practiced thousands of years ago. During an extended fast, the body undergoes a biochemical transition. Stress hormones like cortisol drop and stabilize at a lower baseline, while neurotrophic factors involved in mental clarity and introspection increase significantly. The body enters a state of reduced emotional reactivity and high focus. Biologically, the static of the sarx is being suppressed, facilitating the exact state of clarity described in the biblical text. This physical reality was central to Yom Kippur, the only fast mandated by the law of Moses. On this day, the entire nation was required to humble their souls. This national fast did not earn God's forgiveness. The blood of the sacrifice did that. The fasting humbled the souls of the people so they could enter the presence of God with their spirit in command rather than their appetites. Human biology was engineered to support this connection. When the flesh is voluntarily suppressed, the spirit is free to register the presence of God. Jesus utilized this mechanism during his 40 days in the desert, though he later redefined its application for his followers. He explained that his disciples did not need to fast while the bridegroom was present. There was no need to silence the flesh to seek a God who was physically sitting at the table with them. But Jesus gave a prophetic guarantee that after his ascension, fasting would become a defining practice for his followers. In the era between his first and second coming, the discipline of silencing the self would be the primary way to maintain spiritual sensitivity. This sensitivity is illustrated by Anna the prophetess. She spent decades in the massive, noisy crowds of the temple, worshiping night and day with fastings and prayers. Her consistent fasting tuned her spiritual radar. While thousands of people passed through the temple unnoticed, Anna immediately recognized the infant Messiah the moment he arrived. For Anna, fasting was a way of life that ensured her spirit remained sensitive to God's presence, even in the midst of a crowded and busy world. Modern believers face a challenge Moses and Daniel never did. We live in a world engineered for constant stimulation, where every device is designed to keep our flesh permanently activated. In contrast, the early church in Antioch only received its world-changing mission when the congregation fasted. The Holy Spirit spoke when the collective noise of their flesh had been turned off. This is the distinction of biblical fasting. It is not an effort to climb a ladder to reach a distant God through sacrifice. God has already descended, spoken, and provided grace. The only remaining barrier is the internal static generated by our own impulses and distractions. Fasting settles the noise of the flesh, allowing the spirit to perceive a presence that was never actually absent. It turns down the volume of the world, so we can hear the whisper that has been there all along.
If you enjoyed watching this video, do like the video and please subscribe to Jesus Tell Tales channel for more such videos in the future.